Yo, law infidels, that's right, we're back. It's Hamin's Hardcore Happy Hour, or is it Hamin's Hardcore Hour of Happiness? I'm not sure, because today we're discussing the Mandela effect. So nothing is real. What you thought was real yesterday has been erased. It's been hacked by hacker Hamin, big Stevie Richards, and the Greek God Papadon. Or is it the Richard Stevenson and the Greek goddess Papadon? I'm not sure, because tomorrow it could all change once again, infidels. So sit back and relax, or be afraid of this Hamin's Hardcore Happy Hour. YOLO. YOLO, guys. What's up? We're back again. It's Wednesday night, and I'm pumped to be here. Unfortunately, we're trying to get this four-way dance thing going all the time, but Big Sale got called away on some giant duty, so tonight it's a triple threat, you know, with GGP, Stevie Richards, and hacker Hamin. I've been real busy hacking all the systems, holding that stupid Johnny Depp pirate movie up for ransom. We'll see if Disney's going to pay for that or not. But tonight we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, something that if you don't know about it, you're going to know, and you're going to want to do a lot of research afterwards and mess with your family's heads at the dinner table. This is great conversation. So before we get into the Mandela effect, I want to say what's up to my co-hosts, Stevie Richards and Greek God Papadon. What's going on, Stevie?
Nothing much. How you doing? I can't wait to see how we line up with the way we remember, or the way confabulation works, the way we misremember things. So very interesting. We've already had this conversation, and Papadon can back us up. We Facebook message back and forth about what do you remember, and it's not all in line between the three or four of us counting Sal. It's really interesting.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. And, you know, I kind of got not hot at GGP earlier because he checked me on a couple things, and I had to back up with some of my just my non-wrestling buddies and family, and I feel like I was corrected and wrong, and I got to say GGP went over strong on me. So, Greek God, what's up with you, man? You eating that feta cheese? What are you doing over there?
I am just lounging and debating whether to do dives or headlocks, but, you know.
Yeah, somebody please explain that to me, if you could, Papadon or Ben. I don't even know what's going on.
Yeah, do you want me to put myself over quick? You want to take a GGP? Go for it, man.
All right, well, supposedly, what's his name? Randy Orton went on Twitter and just trolled everybody and was talking about the indie scene, saying that people don't know how to build a show like you build a match, and everyone's doing dives and stealing from the main event, and if everyone's doing dives, then it doesn't mean anything because less is more, which is true. But then he took a shot at Bubba Ray, because Bubba Ray did a suicide dive at a show, I think, and said something about there's a difference between a guy doing a dive and an old man just falling out of the ring. But at the same time, you know what? I don't know either one of those guys. I know they're both very talented, and it is what it is. Their beef. But now he's just trolling everybody. And then Rip Rogers jumped on board, basically preaching what he preaches. And it's just common sense from my point of view, because I agree with the Rip Rogers school of booking. Because bottom line is, you know, I mean, if match one is doing 100 head drops and 17 million false finishes and dives and this and that, then by the time the main event comes around, the crowd's going to be spent, and they're stealing from what the people came to see, which is the main event. You can't start off at gear 5 and go down to gear 1 and go back up to gear 5 and think that your car's clutch is going to still be, you know, kosher. So, you know, it is what it is. Just a lot of hoopla, a lot of shenanigans, tomfoolery.
And you know, here's the Mandela effect, because our timelines are a little different on this, GGP. But just when it came to pass is when everybody saw it with Bubba Ray and Orton. That's when it really became, you know, on the sheets and seeing it. But it started out with a guy named D-Man who just sent a little message to Rip that he typed out, where it breaks down the typical indie match, and it goes through all that dive, and then ends with the guys congratulating each other on social media and telling them to book each other at the next indie show. And all Rip did was retweet it.
I forgot we're on video. I just rolled my eyes. The thought of that. I'm sorry. No, actually, that's good.
And you know, and Randy Orton, like myself, it worships at the altar of Rip Rogers. When Rip did his GoFundMe, Randy was one of the first ones there to throw in $1,000, you know, when he needed it, when he's down. And he trained Randy from the beginning. Used to call him a big fat bastard, just like he called me when he had love handles. And I still am, and Randy isn't. And, it just kind of spiraled out from there. But what GGP just said is exactly right. And how many indie shows that we all work, where it is that, where promoters are really not held accountable, where they're not telling guys to do that. So these guys in match one are doing dives, and then when at the time you get to the main event, when Stevie's working, the match is flat because they've seen it all already. They've seen the trapeze artists do the death-defying stuff by match 4, and anything after intermission is just kind of like, we can go anytime we want now because I've already seen the guy stick his head in the lion's mouth,
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what got lost in translation, because all the marks just want to see the locker room heat between Stevie and Bubba, and when they just think, oh, dives should be banned. No, dives are awesome, but no one should be doing them until the semi-main event or the main event is Rip's point, and he wants to establish wrestling in match 1. No going outside of the ring. No serious, vicious heat. Get the pin over. Win with a sunset flip. Something simple. Second match should be tag team wrestling to establish the tag for later. Just that really oldest of old school mentality. And the fact that we're in a mentality now of, I can do whatever I want, and I'm going to rip Japan strong style and do ROH false finishes, 90 of them. And Will Ospreay kind of came out of the woodwork to be like, hey, I'm having fun and making money, but in like, ha, ha, ha. And Ricochet kind of backed him up, but also put over Rip. But the reality is those guys actually are killing the art of the business by doing that. If they're in the main event, that's one thing. But these guys, these kids, see those guys doing that, and they think that, oh, it's a new day in the business, it's a new era, and all this is good to go. It's not. And if Will would go study with Rip for a year, his career would last twice as long. He wouldn't get hurt, and he'd realize that at the end of the day, doing character will get you a lot farther than doing 90% offense, right? And his back will thank him in 10 years.
Well, yeah, that's the issue that I never really learned how to really work until I got hurt, and I had to work around injuries. And I was always that type of character, the way that would be a character. You were talking off air before we started about the BWO and things like that. So yeah. I was raised in my wrestling life the right way. Even though ECW has a stigma, I was never really a part of that stigma. Only when it counted, like you said. I only got color when it counted. I was only ultra violent or cage matches when it was the payoff or the climax of the angle. I think these guys, they must be incredible athletes, because I don't know how Ricochet and Ospreay and people like that can still, even Ring of Honor guys, because I worked with those guys, how they still continue to work like that and be hurt and still do that. If anything, they're just going to one day not be able to do anything at all, and that's the scary part.
And they are phenomenal. I'm not taking anything away from them.
No. But phenomenal doesn't mean you care about them one way or the other. It means that, like, I like Ricochet a lot. I never met Ospreay, but if Ricochet went out there, which I know he can work, if you're that athletic, you can put together a match and be taught psychology. You just have to pull it back. But what if he gets hurt to the point where he can't do all the crazy stuff and he starts mat wrestling? People are going to, because they're conditioned to want to see nothing but this incredible like if Ospreay doesn't do that, I don't know how many times he spins around before he hits just an enziguri to the back of the head when the guy's down. Yeah. It's impressive, but if he was so hurt, he just did a regular kick. I know from experience, just a regular kick that 100 people do, but knew where to put it. Would people care? Even at this point, for that guy, my psychology is the only thing I can rely on, even back then and especially now. But what are those guys going to do in 10 or 15 or 20 years if they're still working, if they haven't had that, the Rip Rogers or the Ravens or the Dreamers or anybody else to the
most memorable guy in all of Ring of Honor right now is one guy, and that's Dalton Castle, who gets over in his entrance and does character and can get the crowd with a look. Sure, he can wrestle his ass off, there's no doubt about it, but he comes out with little, femboys, twinks with him and whatnot, and it's the visual of that, of the entertainment of the show. Sure, there's a spot for the trapeze artist that Ricochet is, but if he did half the offense and sold twice as much, he would add 5 years to his career.
Well, and I've never heard him talk.
Never. Can he get over in his entrance? Can he get over in a promo? Which, if you want to get to that next level someday, you better goddamn well learn how to do character. Which, I was a improviser at OVW coming in, and they put me with two Arab guys who, were pretty much silent, and I was the mouthpiece. So it was easy for me to, my whole thing was to incite that hatred. So now that I lost 60, 70 pounds, my terrible ass has to get in the ring and try and work a match. And that's where I get exposed as opposed to running my mouth.
I think one of the biggest problems today is this. I mean, I believe there's a fine line where a person can incorporate the old school values and the fundamentals and still be flashy and still do what they want to do and quote unquote get their shit in and get over. But at the same time, there's a big difference between wrestling and working. And most of the boys today don't know how to work. They just know how to choreograph a match and wrestle from A to Z, from bell to bell. Now, on top of that, they're also not getting over. Their moveset's getting over. And by the 10th or 11th or 12th time they've seen it, you know what? Their moveset now is watered down. So now they have to elevate their moveset or move into something else. So what's really know how to work to get themselves over and make that emotional connection with the audience and get them vested into the product. You can go out there and do nothing, but if you get the people to love you and hate you, they're going to remember you, and that's the bottom line. But at the same time, if you're able to do that and then you're able to wrestle, that's the cherry on top of the sundae. You know what I'm saying? And when I wrestled Stevie in Pittsburgh, we could have went out there and done a million false finishes. We could have went out there and, did 27,000 dives. We went out there and told a story, and we got them emotionally attached. And they didn't get the Stevie kick. What they did is, because Stevie and I were debating what the finish should be. Should it be the Stevie kick? Should it be the coquina clutch that he used? We went with the coquina clutch. And then he says, if we feel it afterwards and we want to do a handshake thing, then I said to him, all right, well, if that's the case, we'll feel it out there. And then, in the ring, we called it where I said, yo, I'm going to, swerve it. And he ducked the line and hit me the super kick. And then, boom, the Stevie kick. I went down, and the crowd popped huge.
Yeah, most memorable.
And they remembered. And that night at Extreme Rising, from the vendors that were there selling gimmicks and merch like Feinstein and RF Video to fans, were saying that match was probably the most memorable match of the night and definitely one of the best matches of the night. So I take pride in being able to balance both worlds. But a lot of people today, they don't know how to do that. You know what I'm saying? And Stevie knows how to do that. You know how to do that. I know how to do that because we took time to learn the fundamentals and build a good foundation where we can build something off of. These kids today, they don't know foundations. They're willing to run before they walk, and they want to learn how to 450.
They just ripped Japan. They do 10 minutes out of 14, and at minute 10 they're back to 50-50.
Here's the main deal with that, and it was what keeps me getting booked after 26 years, and I'm proud to say it. I don't work my match. I don't work my stuff. I work the opponent's stuff, and I design the match around what they can do, because things happen here with Papadon. First thing I asked him is, what do you want to do? What do you like to do? We talked about it, and then we designed a match that made sense, and then I just kind of refined it at the time with a little bit of psychology and emotion and timing and stuff like that. I mean, these guys don't even realize. I know we're supposed to talk about Mandela effect. These guys don't even realize. Like, I wrestled a guy on Saturday that I never wrestled before, never did anything with before. They don't even get that. Like, the feeling out process that you're conveying to the audience is kind of a shoot. You're kind of, I said, when we feel each other out and we wrestle and we're getting our timing down, I want to see how you move. I want to feel if stuff's a little tighter, if you're nervous, I want to loosen you up. That feeling out process never even happens. They go right to it like they've wrestled a million times.
Yep.
And that also kills the suspension of disbelief. Like, first time ever, my God. I mean, how are they cooperating so much? When it's actually the opposite of what a wrestling match should be, which is a struggle, a fight. Yeah. When it looks like cooperation, it's no longer a fight.
Yeah, it looks like synchronized swimming, and that's what Rip put over earlier. And hopefully these guys can humble themselves and not just, take it to heart that people are railing on them. And I like the Osprey came back at Rip of like, well, I have a Ring of Honor and New Japan contract. And I was like, I could feel Rip rolling his eyes from 800 miles
away. No, even a WWE contract doesn't mean anything. I'm sorry.
No, no, it doesn't. So,
Hey,
you
by the
know,
way,
shout out-
we're out of anything on this show, we'll probably get more heat for what we just talked about than the crazy Mandela effect. That's the weirdness. So we can always deflect the heat off the conspiracy by talking about wrestling first.
That's right. That's right. You know, because all these armchair quarterbacks, they think they're over, but they don't know fuck all. And if you got a problem with that, you can get at me at @bin_Hamin, at Greek God Papadon, and at BWO Stevie.
Hey, they can call me a jobber if they want, but everybody books me the job that are talent 26 years later. So at the rate I won.
Yeah, show up to any indie show. I'll be happy to give you a $5 face slap infidels and knock some sense into your stupid moron mouth.
Nice.
All right, so y'all, so that pretty much runs the gambit, and you can also check me out on Taz's show earlier this week. I called in on Monday the 15th, and I was honored to be on there with the Human Suplex Machine, and you know I got to pull about 9-10 minutes, a normal Hamin style match, and
or Hamin as he called you. You're Paul's brother.
So that's the whole thing, and actually that could be Mandela effect right there. I'm a Ben Hamin guy. But and actually part of that is shoot too, that I was kind of pumped back in the day. I was like, you can go Ben Hamin, Ben Hamin if they get it wrong, because you know I'm a big Paul E follower from back in the day when I was in ECW, Mark. So works a lot of different ways. So what is the Mandela effect? Well, and why it's called that? So originally, you know, named for Nelson Mandela, the leader, civil rights leader, and politician in South Africa, who was jailed and during apartheid time.
Yeah.
Do you have the one that opens the garage door?
Oh boy, it's getting the ghosts are back.
Have mine.
Yeah.
Get my car out.
At least the chains aren't back.
I didn't realize it.
The origin of the Mandela effect is pretty interesting because it actually, I think, the awareness of the Mandela effect actually happened here in Atlanta at Dragon Con, where
really?
people were talking about stuff. And I know it seems like it has no credibility, but I'm trying to look up the official thing. There was somebody at Dragon Con who was talking about it, and the Mandela thing came up where somebody had believed that Nelson Mandela had died back in 1983, I believe. The early 80s.
93, was it?
93,
No, 80.
brother.
No, but somebody believed he died in the 80s.
Okay.
Here we go, Mandela effect right now. I do believe that they said that because they were talking about it right popping on at Dragon Con, where they were all sitting around and they started talking about this when Mandela died, and then they started kind of exchanging other things that they started to see if they lined up, and they didn't line up. So that's how the Mandela effect was initially kind of brought to awareness. I have to look at those dates.
And it was after they were talking about him winning a Nobel Prize later on in the 2000s that he passed away before he had it as well. So the timeline was really screwed up of, did he get out of jail? Did he die in jail? People remember him getting out of prison and getting the prize and being a huge leader afterwards. And that was kind of the renaissance of the 90s of coming of age for a lot of us. So that stuck on a lot of people's mind. Now, that shows where the twist in the timeline is. That is there some mass hysteria that was going on, and this was like the very first one, and it kind of sat by itself for a while, and then probably 2014 to 2016 there was a slew of them. It's close to 100 now. And what's strange to me is a lot of these are done in entertainment. You know, there's other historic events that we've seen change. And the kid in Tiananmen Square, right? Maybe not Tiananmen Square, but the kid who stands in front of the tanks. People remember that kid getting run over by those tanks, and then some other people remember somebody coming out and grabbing him and pulling him out of the way. A man in a white shirt. So that's another historical event. But things, even as far as brands have switched, a big one for me, because my dad was a Ford guy our whole lives, still is the Ford symbol on the truck now has like a little curly thing on the F, on the dash that goes across the F. And if you go back and look at classic cars, it's there now. And also Volkswagen, where the V and W would cross on their emblem, now there is a split in between them. And also on the Volvo sign, there's the male arrow kind of coming off the top of it. So brand logos are switching, lines in movies are switching, food names are switching, and a lot of songs and lyrics are switching as well. So a lot of things that we take in that we have very vivid memories from our childhood or parts of pop culture are actually being warped. So let's cover a couple of them. What ones?
I'm going to tell you, Mandela is. It's some people believe that they saw his funeral on TV in the early '80s, that he died in prison. So it is the early '80s, and if you go to MandelaEffect.com, it's actually the one resource that has a ton of stuff and people commenting, and it's interesting to see all the varying comments about what people remember or confabulation wise what they misremember. So that'd probably be one site to go to.
And you also had another guy on Twitter on YouTube that you enjoy.
Jacob Israel. Jacob Israel has some excellent. Yeah. And he had a little side note. He was actually the creative force behind The Right to Censor in 2001. So he did all the writing when we created a lot of good promos in WWF at the time. So Jacob Israel, he has some great stuff concerning Mandela Effect, CERN, the symbology. The Gothard Tunnel opening was one of my favorite videos, not favorite events. But
I remember that as Right to Censure, where you would go door to door and see how many people were. We would
censure politicians. Yes.
Nice.
I'd probably get a lot more money from lobbyists if I could do that. But yeah, I mean, is there actually, just on a quick left turn, is there any wrestling Mandela effects? I can't recall.
I've tried to see that, and I think we're probably going to see some. Whether it's, did Ric Flair win the belt 14 times or 16 times? You know what I mean? Like,
and wrestling used to be good.
Times, buddy.
It used to be entertaining. I remember an alternate universe of that.
Yeah. And ECW and WCW is still in business.
Yeah, right.
That'd be great.
So the Mandela one, I mean, if you're African, I'm sure it sticks a bit more than being white bread American, but because we didn't live that apartheid time. But when it comes to everyday household brands and things we grew up with, there's a couple that stick out to me. And another video that's great to YouTube, and we put over Tyler at Secure Team 10. You can just put in Secure Team 10 Mandela Effect, and he's got one video that really does a lot of the big shots on it. And his stuff, to me, is always very objective, not a lot of agenda pushing, and shows you both sides and lets you decide. So if you want another good video, Secure Team 10, Mandela Effect, check that out on YouTube.
I think one of the biggest ones that people talk about is the Bearstein Bears controversy.
That was one of the first ones that kind of hit people from their childhood. So
yes,
Berenstein and Berenstain, if you know these books of the Bear family and how it was pronounced. In my house, it was always Berenstein Bears.
Same here.
Yeah, same here. We talked about it, I think, the first time we were on, or the second time, that I remember this, and somebody might be like, "Oh, I remember this way" or whatever. I was teased as a kid in grade school because I pronounced it Bernstein, because I had Jewish friends that had Stein in their last name, Stin, and so I know for a fact it wasn't Stain because I would have pronounced it Stain, and I was teased for years. And kids don't forget that stuff. So to me, if there's only one thing that proves that something got screwed with a little bit, it's this, because there's books and there's also still VHS tapes. You can see it on YouTube videos where it has and TV guides, right? Where it still has the old spelling. So it's kind of weird why would you change that? Branding is one thing.
Did you see books with the old spelling? I think alternative merchandise that aren't directly correlated and related to it. And this is what a part of it that's kind of the overall arcing thing, as opposed to going through each one, which we'll cover a lot of them here. But that if it's directly related to the original creation, it changes. If it's something that's a byproduct, like a TV show referencing it, or a merchandise piece that's a McDonald's toy that's different, then that doesn't change. But it seems like the actual copywritten thing or the person or the line, that changes. Everything that's related to it or outside of it really doesn't change.
That's strange.
And that's where you can find these riffs in proof to be like, I remember it the other way, because when you go back and try and look these things up online, you're only going to find of the real brand or the real moment you're talking about, you're only going to find the changed version. You're not going to find an old version and new version to play along side by side with each other. And that's what's really cracking people's heads wide open with all this
I want to make a quick point about branding. When people said, well, they just basically, well, so they came and got Papadon, apparently.
That's it.
Mandela police. So when you create a new brand, and I know from when I did Stevie Richards Fitness, which is the smallest scale you could probably ever imagine, but I was in WWE when they changed from WWF to WWE. Just to change everything was such a pain in the ass and cost millions upon millions of dollars, but it was necessary to do with the World Wildlife Fund lawsuit and all that stuff. Yeah. What I don't understand, like Oscar Mayer, I can't even pronounce it because it's changed, but Oscar Mayer, Sex in the City, which is Sex and the City. I'm going down the line, but we lost.
If you want to get your wife on these, Sex in the City is now Sex and the City, and
it doesn't make any. Yeah,
that's a huge thing when it comes to convincing the wives and whatnot. I think we lost Papadon, but
we did. Yeah, no, she's convinced too because we've talked about it But with branding and doing all that stuff costs so much money, and people who do this and rebrand make it a whole promotional campaign. They make something out of it to make people aware, to get it back inside your mind where you can't forget it. The Oscar Mayer.
We had to get the F out, right, with WWE.
What's that? To get the F out campaign. All this different stuff, you would figure that they would Chick-fil-A. I know it used to be, you know what I mean? I don't even remember what the spelling is. It's been changed so many times, and from what I've seen, there's different things like, oh God, I just had it on the tip of my tongue too. We lost him again. That's crazy.
Yeah, he's in and out.
Mandela effect. I mean, we could talk about branding all day. I think what really will convince people when they say you're absolutely nuts, you're just reading the sign wrong and this and that, is those iconic lines in movies and television. You can't deny that these things have changed.
No, in that Tyler Secure Team 10 video, the one that stood out to me was, every day we were watching as real little kids was Sesame Street followed by Mr. Rogers, and the Mr. Rogers theme song. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you be mine? And now it's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. Like, that song was drilled into our heads, PBS wise, so many times.
I swear to God, man.
Listen, you gotta cut me some slack. I gotta go pick up my daughter, man.
No, I'm cutting you plenty of slack. Don't worry. Just messing with you.
We're doing a big Val Venus on the road. Bob Evans riding with Bob, Mandela effect.
Yeah.
There we go. Yo, listen though, but that thing you said about Mr. Rogers, I agree with you, man. I don't remember this neighborhood. It's
beautiful.
I remember exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now even the one I found a couple of weeks ago. Oh, the one I mentioned last show was the whole thing with Stanley Kubrick with the Eyes Wide Shut. That blew my mind because I definitively remember him dying during the filming of the movie and then someone else taking over the reins. And, I mean, obviously that's something I personally found and I didn't bring to light, like make a big deal about. But also another one. Remember the Sweet Dreams, the song Sweet Dreams Are Made of These?
Yeah.
Now it's Sweet Dreams Are Made of This. Which makes no sense. Yeah, because it makes no sense.
Plural.
Because they're talking about dreams and these, and it rhymes with C's, and everything else in the song rhymes with the word these. But now, if you look at the lyrics, it's THIS, this. I was like, whoa, that makes no sense.
I saw Smooth Criminal from Michael Jackson's change too, but I think that one might be. There's a bunch out there that are clickbait, so beware and whatnot. But here's one, Stevie, that is almost everybody's child. Either people have seen this movie 1,000 times or they've never seen it all, which is also a weird thing to be because parents wanted to protect their kids from it. But in The Wizard of Oz, when they're going through the dark forest there and they've all got their weapons out, I just saw a clip this week. Scarecrow's got a 357 revolver, maybe a 44, and that the Tin Man not only has his axe, but he's got a huge ass wrench over his shoulder as well.
What?
I never remember the wrench, and I never remember the Scarecrow having a heater.
Were those guns even made back when they filmed that movie?
Yeah, I mean, Colts
Okay,
were.
I'm just. I mean, with 357 Magnum, I don't know much
No,
about.
I mean, it's a revolver long barrel. It could be any.
Wait a minute. Why would you? I don't remember why would you have that?
I don't
in a
remember
movie?
either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be wasting wing monkeys left and right if I had a if I had a 45 in my hand. You know what I mean?
I
only
remember
thing
the wrench, but I don't remember. Now I remember the wrench and trying
You
to find.
remember having an axe and a wrench?
I remember there being a wrench. So I don't. Well, the point is, I don't remember a gun. Like, why would you pull like you just pull a gun out on a bunch of midgets or whatever they?
It don't even fit.
Which sounds like a movie on like a movie all on its own. Sounds
Yeah.
like an excellent premise.
Yep. And then another one of the big line that changed is you can't find on I Love Lucy. Lucy, you got some splaining to do. You can't find that line anymore in there.
Really?
A classic line no longer exists inside I Love Lucy. And also Desi Arnaz and Desi Arnaz. The name has changed as well.
What did it change? I remember Desi Arnaz.
Me too.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
So
But
now
I
it's
guess-
Here's one that we can all relate to because we're all sci-fi geeks. Star Wars. Two things. One, the infamous line, "Luke, I am your father," changed to "No, I am your father." I personally remember "Luke, I am your father."
sure.
And the second thing is C-3PO's leg from the knee down on the right leg is silver. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I remember him being fully gold. And it's funny because if you look in the prequels, he's fully gold.
Yeah.
But in the episode 4, his leg from the right kneecap down to his foot is silver, which makes no sense whatsoever.
Here's one too with the I told you about the Luke, I am your father being changed back to Luke, I am your father with the Mark. Did you see the Mark Hamill prank thing on Facebook?
No, I haven't seen
yeah,
that.
I can't find it. I'll send it to you. But there's an even more telling video from James Earl Jones on the Today Show reading that line. He goes, I saw that line, and he says, Luke, I am your father. And that's kind of weird how that didn't change off of that. So that shows right there that something did change, at least for a while. And there's
And
plenty
now
of videos.
You said it's back to Luke, I am your father.
Well,
right?
because Mark Hamill, either you're back or Luke, or Mark Hamill remembers the line as Luke, I am your father, because he did the line in the prank video with a fan.
But if we were to throw in the DVD right now
Yeah.
of Star Wars, what's it going to be?
I don't know. Some stuff they say, this is where Jacob Israel's videos are really interesting because he keeps up with it probably more than we are. We're just touching back into it together. But he's been paying attention, and he said some of the stuff is even changing back, which is pretty amazing. And for people who are
Like
saying,
Houston, we got a problem.
Houston, we have a problem, but then it changed to Houston, we had a problem. How could you had a problem, or in the past tense, when you're still in space having the problem?
Yeah. Yeah, we're
Sorry.
fine now. We had one. The guy farted in the cockpit, but we're good. You know. So things like that are Americana and just a piece of everyone's life. Now, is there a sole controller? Why is this happening? Here's a connection, the first connection of explanation. So here's a Mandela effect. Sally Field. They said, actors change their names plenty, just like wrestlers do. But some people say her name was Sally Field, and then other people say Fields. And I remember it being Field when I was a kid, and her most famous line when she won her Academy Award was, "You like me, you really, really like me." And now it's changed to, "You like me, right now, you like me." And and things like that become Americana are just throughout 20, 30 different TV shows referenced for the next 20 years, from Simpsons to even Bill Clinton doing it when he got elected and inaugurated, doing the exact line. So my point going back to earlier is things that are the offshoot of the brand as opposed to the actual moment retain their integrity of what our memory was. However, the real thing has changed forever. Now with Sally Fields, that change happened, but also her brother is a high-level physicist at CERN, which is what a lot of people are blaming this on, that they're messing with space-time continuum, opening black holes and alternate realities in the multiverse, that they are controlling it, and that once CERN came online and they started doing this, that's when we've gotten these slew of Mandela effects.
Well, look, you want to hear something coincidental? Remember the Mayan 2012 prediction?
Yeah.
How our world's going to change? People thought it was going to be the end of the world. 2012 is when CERN started, right? So there's the coincidental situation is that maybe this is when they would start testing the dark matter particle, looking for the God particle, whatever they're doing at CERN. This is when stuff started to change. Not as much as first, but like you said, from 2014 to 2016, a plethora of things decided to change either for the better or for the worse. But point being is they've changed. And there's a guy, he's a kid. He's a smart, blonde-haired kid that he's on YouTube, and his father tapes him. They do a couple videos here and there. He explains God. Yeah. He kind of looks like the kid from Little Giants, but blonde. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And he basically said that he thinks it's CERN messing with reality because they changed the weight of an electron, but so minute, so minuscule. It's like 0.0000001% difference. That's what's causing these rifts and these in the timeline, and that's why ever so often new things are popping up, because every time they do one of these experiments or whatever they're doing over there in CERN, boom, we get something new come out of the woodwork, or out of the mainframe, if you will. But also remember the dancing CERN video that they had a few years ago.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys seen it.
The rap.
There's
a collider rap.
Yeah. So there's a dude who's holding two paper signs, and he's like, I don't know, he worked at CERN. I don't know what his position was. On the first sign, it says Nelson, right? Oh no, it says what does it say?
One says Mandela, and the
no. One says Mandela. So the other one says
Bond number 1.
Bond number 1. That's right. And the guy who played Bond number 1, not in the movies but in the TV show, his first appearance was Nelson Royale. So they put the two signs together. It says Nelson Mandela, which is what everyone's tying into this Mandela effect thing, which is too coincidental, man. I mean,
that wasn't like something that was supposed to be in your face. That's pretty covert when they were just trying to teach people about the Higgs boson and the LRC, right? When it comes to that, like none of that was outlined in the plan of CERN when that came to the public. Plus, out front, there's a very questionable Saturnalia satanic whole statue as well.
That's the one they were dancing around at night, and they caught that footage of them doing it, and they said it was just like a huge rib. Like, we're just playing a joke. That's what we're... But CERN, Papadon, CERN's been around for a lot longer. They were actually around, from what I understand, what I read at least. I mean, I've double-checked and triple-checked it. Really, one of the beginning of the Internet. I think CERN at least had something to do when the Internet came of age as well.
But what about from what I recall reading, and who knows, for all I know, it probably changed because of the Mandela effect. I can't remember their tracks. Weren't they starting to test for the God particle in around 2012, because that's when they got that big cannon that they finally built?
That's when they turned it on. You're right. That's when they turned on the collider. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's very coincidental that we had a prophecy that they're going to say the world as we know it ends and something else begins, or people thought it was going to be the end of the world, but mainly we just got shifted into a different timeline because of this. I mean, is it true? Who knows? But it's a little too coincidental for my liking to think that it's not, and then maybe it's just me being the free thinker that all three of us are, and we don't adhere to thinking within a box. But there's too many things out there. I mean, like JFK's car went from a 4-seater to a 6-seater. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yet the JFK Museum that attributes his whole presidency run, and they have a copy of the exact car, but it's a 4-seater, which makes no sense. Why would a museum that dedicates their whole to do it correctly? You know what I mean? And then like we were talking the whole Lindbergh baby trial. How is it the trial of the century if they caught the guy and he killed the baby, but I recall the kid never being found? That's why it's a crime of the century, because no one was caught.
I recall that. Yeah, I recall it being. It was on Unsolved Mysteries with that guy. The guy who played the cop on TV. It was like one of the biggest unsolved mysteries, up with Amelia Earhart. What was the other one? The Dillinger. What's the guy's name?
John Dillinger.
John. Oh, JD. What the guy who jumped out of the airplane? Yeah.
Shit.
Forget his name. But those were the shows I used to watch on like Saturday nights and stuff for unsolved mysteries about these things that have never been concluded or come to any kind of ending. And that Lindbergh baby was like the first unsolved mystery ever of how that happened, because everybody thought, there's people that actually still think that an alternate timeline in their mind, they remember that John Lindbergh killed the baby, and they found out. There's all sorts of different like weird stuff.
But then we have things like The Simpsons, where they bust in on a Simpsons episode, and Grandpa Simpson claims that he's the Lindbergh baby. So why would they do that joke in that line if the baby
dead.
wasn't still missing and they were looking for it, right?
Well, look, exactly. Like you were saying before, all the stuff that's not directly correlated, but is an offshoot, is still the same. Like remember that show, Sarah Jessica Parker, right? She had on HBO. I remember it being Sex and the City, right?
You remember
that?
No. I remember in Sex in the City, and then everyone now it's Sex and the City. But if you look at the award shows from that time when they were still on television, all the award presenters were saying Sex in the City. So why would they announce it incorrectly at an award show, on live TV? And, like the other thing, Interview with a Vampire, not Interview with the Vampire. I don't remember I remember A.
Sure.
Now, I know these are all minuscule, and people can say, well, you know what, maybe you're just wrong. But you know what? We can't be wrong about so many things. I mean, it's not like one lyric in one song. It's a lyric to this song. There's stuff in the Bible that's changed, where they're saying the lion sat down with the sheep, or instead of the wolf and the sheep. Yeah, I mean, when there's a lion
lays with the lamb, and now the wolf lays with the lamb.
The lion is a symbolic thing in the Bible, and that's Jacob Israel once again. He covers that specific thing, how the verses. He studied theology. He wrote essays upon essays on that, and he says, if he says everything changed, I believe him, because he studied his whole life with that.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
No, I was going to say that what's interesting is, and I'm always looking at the, just like you guys, probably the predictive programming that's put out there on TV and movies. This is like straight out of a Flash episode. And it's weird how all this stuff is going on, and then you have the multiverse, and now Injustice 2's out on video game. It's almost like people will be excited to know that this stuff exists, rather than, wow, this is crazy. This is like way too much power than we should even know about right now.
Right.
Yeah, but Ben says it before. I mean, he said in a prior show that, all the quote-unquote secret societies, elites, whatever, people who run this world, they like throwing this stuff in our face subliminally. This way, when it does come into fruition, they can say, hey, we told you. So this could be the same factor. I mean, how coincidental now that this Mandela effect thing is blowing up and all these things are coming into light, that we have all these shows talking about multiverses. And, I mean, obviously DC Comics always had a multiverse if you're a big comic book nerd like I am. But, now it's on TV. And then you have other things talking about multi-universes. And then Neil deGrasse Tyson, whatever his name is, coming out talking about, multi-universes. It's very coincidental that at this time, everyone and their mother is talking about the same subject. It's almost like those newscasters reading the same script about the weather being 90 degrees tomorrow, and you better get, your shorts or whatever the case may be. And they're all reading the same line verbatim at the same time in different states, in different regions, in different territories, but it's the same exact thing. I just think it's very coincidental now that stuff's coming out, that all these different media outlets are talking about multiverses, and science and physicists are talking about multiverses, when 5 years ago this wasn't even a subject. You know what I'm saying?
You know what wasn't a subject until 2012. Now that I think about it, it's ramping up now, and it has been since about 2012 or so, is the flat Earth stuff.
Oh yeah.
If you think about that, no one ever really talked about it before 2012. 2000.
I would say 1200 to 1400. They were talking about.
No. But you know what I mean. Well, once again, and I know this is far out on a limb, but with all these other changes, like back then it was something, then we remembered it to be the heliocentric model. Then there's other people now are convinced, or they've always thought that way. Then think about it. It could also be another not in a multiverse type thing and not an alternate timeline, but an alternate way of thinking and the way you perceive the world too. It's so nuts because people who sit there and they deny all these changes that we've been embedded with. We've been programmed for these lines, for these catchphrases, for these children's shows, for these movies and TVs to remember this more than we should remember stuff from school. And it's changed.
We're consumers, absolutely, and it became part of our life and culture, which is what's weird to me is if something's going to change, why the frig are you changing logos in movies?
The stuff, the programming stuff that you're changing the stuff you've institutionalized us with. We're indoctrinated.
Do you think it's, that they really have control over, or they just are doing something at CERN, and because they do something just going to change butterfly effect wise?
That's an excellent movie reference, by the way. Once again, everybody watch the Butterfly Effect because that's once again another thing that's almost like Flashpoint, where you're looking at change. I think that maybe speculation. You can agree with me or not, Papadon and Ben. I think they tried stuff and it got all out of whack, and now they're trying to fix it.
Could very well
or they're just still trying stuff, and it's just like whatever.
There's a conspiracy story that, was supposedly leaked, and this is all completely sounds like fiction, but everything else we're talking about would seem like it too. However, it's all too goddamn real. Is that I heard they were pushing the limits of the Hadron Collider at CERN, and there's a team there, and they all have code names like Mother and Father and Family. And they go in these special rooms, and some people are briefed and not debriefed and all this shit. But they went back in and they turned, like just on a movie, they turned the dial past the point of don't do that, and there's still 3 or 4 clicks to go. And there was a huge bolt of bright light and just came over everything. And whoever was considered Mother, I can't remember her name. You can look this up. And people supposedly from CERN stooged this off, that she was vaporized out of her clothes, and when the light, stopped being there, the only thing that was left there was her jacket, her badge, and her shoes and whatnot. And in her, there was no body, no bones or anything. She was just gone, whether sucked into another dimension, portal wise, or what have you. So there's a little side story of that's out there that could easily be fabricated, but at the same time, with all this other stuff going on, why not give it an ounce of credibility of what they're trying to do now? Is that open up time travel portals, stargates? Is that what they're creating? Are we really in a multiverse where it's looks like an old slide carousel where this slide looks like that one, but it's a little changed, and we're just going around that carousel of slides, and the reality is warped maybe one time every time they fire that.
Did you see the Secure Team 10 video where the UFO went up in there and it disappeared? All the clouds you got to watch that one. That's interesting because that represents, or it's similar to that bright light you're talking about. And there was an object that came up, and when it went through, it almost looked like it was CGI. Who knows if it might have been, but the clouds just kind of disappeared. It looked just like something out of The Flash when they go into go to another Earth or something like that. It was so crazy. So are you saying, by the way, are you guys saying that in another universe that Ricochet and Will Ospreay are just mat wrestling and not doing any of these dives? And Randy Orton is doing the flying space tiger drop to somebody in Japan?
I can work more than
you never know.
I know in any universe, I'm not doing any of that stuff. I don't care.
BWO's really over. The NWO never was over.
What's that? I'm the only guy to hurt. I'm the only guy to hurt myself on a side slam. I'm sure that goes across universes too.
Yeah.
No, the BWO's
I'll be wrong in that multiverse, but my promo will still be strong. Yeah. So I think we're kind of all in somewhat agreement here that there is got to be a connection with CERN because of how us being wrestlers, how kayfabed it is, how many small things, whether it's that LRC rap video that they did with the Mandela Bond thing to put that over before any of this came to light on the internet. That was done 4 years before this became a hot button topic.
And don't forget, their symbol is 666 on their logo.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yep. and so is Google. The Google symbol is that as well. Your Chrome, and so is a lot of. If you look at these kids shows, Nickelodeon on the stage, the stage itself is 666 all the way around, and so is John Cena's hand symbols with he puts them up and all that shit. So it's all right in front of us all the time. But I think CERN, and especially the Sally Fields connection and the brother, all has.
Well, what about Forrest Gump?
Forrest Gump, yeah, go ahead with that one, Pop.
Yeah, man, everybody knows Forrest Gump in the movie, as good as it was, that when he's sitting on the park bench with the lady and he offers her chocolate, he says, Mama says, life is like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're going to get. And it's changed. Now it changed from life is a box of chocolates to life was like a box of chocolates, which makes no sense. Because then Tom Hanks goes on Saturday Night Live and does a skit with one of the Saturday Night Live comedians and says life is a box of chocolate. And they went through all the Tom Hanks movies and they were shooting one-liners from all his movies, even from Bachelor Party. You know, that's how far back I'm, you know, in my opinion, one of the Tom Hanks' best movies. But regardless of the fact, you know, why would he say the wrong line? But again, it's not directly correlated. It's an offshoot. So maybe the truth lies, you know, in these offshoots because there's proof. And when there's proof like that, it has to have some kind of meaning that we're not all crazy. We're not all been punch drunk or been hit in the head with too many steel chairs, because it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up. I mean, when I brought this up in the locker rooms, you know, and talking about it like at NYWC, people are like, you're nuts. Bull James is like, you're crazy, you know? And I'm like, no, dude, look at it. I mean, like I brought the other day, like I was telling Sal on the Messenger. My father, when he was alive, he was a big mark for the Crocodile Dundee movies.
Yeah,
and I remember
this one pisses me off. Sale got hot.
You know, and then that one line when the guy tries to mug him with the knife, he goes, "That's not a knife. This is a knife." It's changed. Because I remember it being, "This is a knife." You know, and I remember verbatim because I used to say it all the time to my dad, because my dad used to say it with his heavy Greek accent, and I would laugh at it because it sounded funny. But now it's changed from "this is a knife" to "now that's a knife," and I'm like, "Whoa, that's not the line." You know what I mean? So, I mean,
that's probably one of the top 5 80s references from movies as well.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And to change something that bold, how can you think that you're not gonna and get caught by doing that?
Well, here's the weird thing. I remember it being "that's a knife."
Do you really?
Yes,
you remember
I do.
That's not a knife. You remember that's not a knife.
I remember that's not a knife when he's looking at the guy and he goes, "That's a knife." I remember it that way.
This is a knife.
Well, see, this is just an example of how it's splintered in so many different directions, possibly in so many different ways, where 2 out of 3 people can remember it one way, but we remembered everything else the same. Right. I remember.
Well, that's because Ben and I are from Earth. Ben and I are from Earth Prime, and you're like from Earth 17.
Well, here's another thing too. A-Team van, now it's tricolored. I remember.
Yeah, man, I remember it being solid black with a red stripe.
Solid black with a red stripe.
Now it's black on the bottom, red stripe, and gray on top.
Well, if I just say this, if these things, which are really, you think about it in terms of real life, I wish the Ghostbusters movie with the girls was never made in this timeline, but I put that up on Twitter. People didn't like that. I will say this, like, I'm scared because we're paying so much attention to this stuff because this is what we've grown up with, and these are movies we've watched 100 times, TV shows or whatever. What about the stuff we're not really paying attention to that's been changed, that's really, like, earth-shattering and, like, just world-changing stuff that they changed?
We have these shows of, like, hunting Hitler, you know, and it was always a conspiracy that he got away to some degree, but now what if it goes away that he never even died in the Wolf's Lair and things like that, that it just becomes commonplace history that he did get away, of what you're talking about, to really change things in a massive scope, right? Along those lines. I agree with that. And that's kind of, I was like, why is it, you know, I was getting at earlier without going right for the throat, is why is it always these predictive programming pop culture references that are for Generation Xers, kind of, that is hitting them? Looney Tunes.
My theory
is another one. Looney Tunes. TOONS or TUNES, like Tunes the song, and that's changed as well. I mean, just these things we saw every single day of our lives, and now it's completely different.
Well, do you know what it is, man? I have a theory, and it's weird, but because like that kid said, they changed the weight of an electron so minuscule that something so irrelevant gets changed. So that's why I personally think it's all entertainment, songs, movies, books, titles and stuff, lines in movies and stuff like that gets affected, and not really big eventful things. But there are a couple of things that have changed, like obviously Nelson Mandela's death and the Lindbergh baby, and
I love that you call him Lindbergh baby like he's cheese made out of cheese.
Whatever the hell his name is, just whatever, man. But the point is, you know, the only other thing that I can really recall that really blew my mind was where New Zealand is, because I recall New Zealand being on the upper right echelon of Australia, and Australia being lower than New Zealand. But now, if you look at a map, New Zealand is below Australia. Now that blew my mind, because two things: Australia is known as the land down under. But if you have a country that's below you, how are you the land down under?
Exactly.
You know, that's beneath you. That makes no sense.
Well, also, you know? Africa, South America,
Sicily.
All that stuff has changed. The size of
Africa. The lining up of South America, the coast with the United States. I remember drawing on my, on my homemade title belts, the North America and South America, and it being even. Now it's not. It's moved over, coincidentally, 33 degrees.
Oh, that's you're right. That's a wrestling Mandela effect, because the Intercontinental Championship belt had North and South America on it, and you can see the two different versions if you look it up online. That's also another change.
Those homemade belts, man, because I don't get many title shots. I was just, but and I'll go under. I don't give a fuck. But now let's get away real quick from that explanation, which I feel CERN is 70% of what it could be. And I dropped the line butterfly effect. Now, what does that mean? And read stories about this of time travelers when I was in junior high, of them going back and don't get off the path. If you step on one blade of grass, you could change everything forever. And there's another great story, which I'm surprised hasn't been made into an awesome movie with Tom Cruise playing the lead or something. But there's a story of a man named John Titor, JOHNTITOR.
Yep.
You can go to johntitor.com, and it looks like a 1998 website still, like old dial-up style we used to have. And it gives a good look at this guy who supposedly came back from the year 2036, John Titor. He's in an Air Force program.
I just want to let you know real quick, I typed in John on the web browser, and it auto-filled it.
It auto-filled John
And I've
Titor.
never been to the site.
Really?
How weird
You know the
is that?
story, Stevie, or no?
That's strong.
No, I know the story. No, I was typing in the website that he gave, and I put in John, and it auto-completed it.
Wow.
I've never visited this site. I mean, that's just a Big Brother type stuff right there.
Yeah, that's the NSA listening in.
Hacker Hamin over strong all day long, infidels.
Yalla.
God, I'm sorry.
No, it's all good, man. And, supposedly Titor came back to the 70s, and he got this computer that was an IBM computer, and there was only maybe 100 of them made, and they're nothing too crazy, because we didn't, computers weren't in everybody's home at that time. It was still pretty much in industry or government. And then time traveled forward. Now, his time travel device is probably like a 6 foot by maybe 2.5 foot wide device, and I don't want to say as big as a casket, but maybe half that size. And supposedly, the story that another story that I read, he put it in the back of a nice car that this guy in the future had given him. They were in a field, so he could just sit in the car, and it took X amount of time for him to go back. And then he was able to sell the car in the past, so he'd have money to survive to carry out his missions. And he got this computer. Then he went forward, where he had to actually debug Y2K, because there was going to be X amount of problems. And these computers, when these systems were set up for nuclear or what have you, were only able to be accessed by this IBM computer. And he would meet with these guys in the future, our present at that time, his past. And they're like, how do you know this? No, this was very top secret. Well, obviously in the future, these things were revealed. And he was able to, thwart Y2K when we had all that kind of craziness going on and take care of it before anything happened, and we just kind of went over it with a dud. So before CERN and before all this other shit was happening, this John Teeter story, so while he was back and the internet was actually going on mid to late 90s, he was doing open Ask Me Anythings and vlogs and things like that, and outlining how and showing pictures of his time machine, which you can actually see on johnteeter.com, and letting people know how it worked. Now, people wanted to get the actual specifics, and he would say things like, well, I'm more of like a jet fighter pilot. I can fly the jet, but I can't build you one from scratch. I know what it does and how it works. And supposedly he went and actually lived with himself as a child and his family, and they protected him. And then once that was gone, once he went back to the future, that whole family got witness protection programmed, and they were just gone, immediately, whether whacked out or taken to New Zealand, I guess. But that is another side explanation possibly for what's actually going on, that there is a whole time travel program in the 2030s, 2036 that could have spun out from CERN, from where we are now. If they can miniaturize this 17-mile loop and make that into whatever his time travel technology is, to make a vortex around you to send you back to do these things, that could also be an explanation, and that him going back in time and doing these small butterfly effect things are what have changed all these things along the way.
It's interesting looking through the post, and it's seen that it's been archived. Obviously, they have merchandise too and T-shirts, so somebody's capitalized.
Was that a coherent rant? Were we able to follow that, or no? Was I just going on?
No, it's pretty.
No, we got you, bud.
Well, okay. It's saying here with the story that the things he predicted, like the computer, the IBM computer, they went back to the 70s for 72 or 74, whatever date in the 70s. It had some special function or capability that they didn't even let the public know until after he was gone. And he talked about this capability in the year 2000, and it didn't come out till 2003 or 2004 because they were trying to hide it from competitors at the time because they could take advantage of that feature. Also, it's saying here that his posts were written well before 9/11. There's stuff about that. The Discovery accident, he talked about that actually in more detail in those forums, correct?
Yes.
The space shuttle, not this. Was it not the Challenger, or was it the Columbia? One of the two. I think it was the Columbia. Challenger happened in Challenger happened in '86, so he was in 2000. I think it was the Columbia accident, which was 2003.
Yeah,
and he knew it, so they got that wrong there. There was no Discovery accident. It was Columbia.
Well, here's the thing with that, Stevie, is he also put over that and I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, is you can push destiny, but you're always going to get there. If he comes back to thwart what happened in 2000, and maybe he stopped that. Say we're moving towards World War III, and these time travelers are coming back and keep pushing it off a little bit. Eventually, we're going to get there, and it's not going to be pretty. But maybe we can move it for 2 years. But the cause of moving and doing butterfly effects like that are what we're actually feeling from these time travelers coming back and doing small things that, as they look back on in the future, oh, what if we didn't do that and we made this choice? It's not an absolute science where they can do it. They just say, this thing happened, let's take this guy out, or let's stop him from being there at X amount of time and missing a meeting. And when that happens, our reality shifts in line in some way.
Remind people too, Ben, about the Trump thing. That's really interesting because people might be listening to this for the first time. It's crazy.
So here's another thing and I would say mirror or curved lens that a lot of people believe the Hollywood super elite had access to, where they could look into the future and see. It has to be almost on a 20-year arc, I would believe, because the Simpsons episode that came out in 1995, I believe, maybe 96, shows Trump as the president, as a rib on the escalator, and the kid with the sign holding it up and the exact shirt. And then in 2016, that exact image, that exact true thing was captured on film. A kid with that shirt, with that sign, it's not a plant. And obviously Trump is our president. So that also plays into the John Teeter testimony of, I came back and saw this, but how are you going to be a writer for The Simpsons and get that kind of stuff in there verbatim of what happens in a reality?
Like it was synced up. The sign dropped right at the same exact time that he was at a point in the escalator with the thumbs up. I mean, it was really really strange. I mean, that really gave me chills seeing that.
Yeah. So is that John Teeter maybe got a job as a Simpsons writer? I don't know. But, I think that these Hollywood elite, whatever satanic cult they're into, there is some sex magic thing that's going on where they do see what happens in the future on X amount of time ahead. Because
you do know that there's talking about that we're living in an alternate universe with Trump as president. The mainstream media is saying that. They needed to talk to physicists and have them. Yes, right, Ben? They're actually saying we may be living in an alternate universe because Trump is president.
Why wouldn't they use that power of CERN, of you were some serious Hillary Illuminati haters, to be like, you know what, let's make this choice instead? And they did it on election night. And didn't it seem like Hillary should have gone over strong?
Oh, she didn't even she wasn't selling anything.
It was literally like they had it locked up. And then the next day
she never made one appearance or didn't even give a speech for the last 2 or 3 months before that. She phoned it in. It was a pretty foregone conclusion. You're right.
So it's like they knew, and then somebody was like, fuck that. Watch this. We're going to change the electron valence shell real quick, and you're going to wake up tomorrow and help the world.
Here's a couple of things that I heard, and they kind of tie into what we're talking about now. One is there are ties between this whole time travel John Teeter guy and the Trump family. That's the first thing I heard. Second thing I heard is when the FBI seized all of Nikola Tesla's papers.
Yes, that's
one of the things that he was working on. Obviously, besides the death ray and all that stuff, is that he was able to have a time travel machine. And the guy who basically studied these papers and analyzed them was Trump's uncle, Jonathan Trump, I think his name was. And I'm pretty sure Uncle John probably put little fat Donald on his knee and told him a couple of secrets about time travel. Who knows? And that you never know. I mean, a buddy of mine said this to me once, and it kind of stuck with me. He says 9/11 was the day things changed for this country, right? We went to a whole 180 degrees. Everything changed. Our freedom was taken away with the Patriot Act. We went into, and USA became a heel worldwide. They went into other countries, jobbing people out to steal the oil, steal gold, keep the petrodollar moving. Everything's intertwined. He goes, what was the date when Trump won the election? 11/9, the complete opposite of 9/11. And I went, wait a minute. And he goes, yeah. He goes, watch, things are going to fall back into line now. And he just walked away, and I was like, what? So it kind of made me raise my eyebrow, pull a rock. But it is a little coincidental that, because with numerology and all this stuff, that it is the same backwards date. So you never really do know.
Well, here's another thing. You just said The Rock. On Drudge Report today, polling was that if The Rock ran in 2020, he would kick the shit out of Donald Trump in a presidential run. Now, to get back to Hollywood, I'm pretty sure both you guys have probably seen Idiocracy, right?
Yes.
I've never seen it.
Oh,
but I know what it is.
Christ on a cracker. Well, the president, played by
Terry Crews.
Terry Crews, thank you, is pretty much The Rock, an ex-wrestler, come to be the president of everything. Not that he's the Rock is the idiot character that Terry Crews is, but again, if we're talking about Trump in The Simpsons in the future of that stuff. Did Mike Judge get stooged off of what things are going to be in the future as far as that goes? Now, he's been on Alex Jones plenty, and I don't think that he would put that over. But, if it's in there, and now we've got the great one becoming president as far as that goes, how long are we away from Brondo and electrolytes on our crops?
Oh, and if people don't know, they were watering the crops with Gatorade. And they did. They were so stupid they didn't know they had to use water to make the crops grow.
And they're obsessed with butts and things like that. And 2015 was the year of the butt, right, with Kim Kardashian and all that shit. So here we are again, even if it might be in a satire format, living out a reality that was in a movie what was that made? 2000, 2001 maybe?
Yeah,
maybe, I'm not
like
sure.
that, yeah.
I'd have to look
It's
up,
amazing how many people say they would vote for him without even knowing what kind of president he would be, with no experience. It truly is becoming a popularity contest, and that's how Trump won. Trump won because he was.
I would vote for The Rock. I'm not going to lie.
He was only less hated than Hillary. That's the only reason
why I voted for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I did too. I voted for him, and just because I knew it was going to be a bullet in the guts of this Illuminati cabal.
We all got worked.
That are raping children. Well, not really, because I didn't expect shit from him. I expect him to fuck it up and get impeached too. But the whole system's got to fall. And I go back to Al Snow 101. You put heat on your heel and you make your baby off your heel. So we need a monster heel to make a good baby face.
Okay.
There really are no baby faces in there.
honestly, the only two people I think that can actually save this country if they did run and get elected, one would be Ron Paul, which will never happen.
Yeah.
All right. It is too late. You know,
Agreed.
He peaked way too early. You know, but the fact that he wants to be more of a nationalist than a globalist, I think that's exactly what we need to do in this country. Not to get too political. And the other person is Jesse Ventura, because I agree with a lot of what he says. It makes fundamental sense.
But here we are again talking about the most real politics on the planet is not in DC. I mean, they control the shit. Wrestling politics destroys all other politics. That's why I would vote for The Rock, because we all know what workers think like, and you could call his spots a mile away, right?
Yeah, so. I just I think people have to change. People have to change, and people have to hold these people at least to task on the surface. When somebody goes in front of a camera on a news show, which many of these people in Congress did, and said, I didn't read the bill, but I signed it for the health care bill. Come on. Yep. I mean, that's our fault. That is our fault for doing that.
And that's where I'm saying bring back the gallows, bring back the Salem witch trials part 2, because they all need to go in the dunk, and they need a nice tight tie around their neck. Man.
Well, let me ask you this question. You brought up Salem witch trial. I saw a quick video today before, about the Mandela effect. The video said that 20 witches were killed in the Salem witch trials. What do you guys recall them being? How they were massacred? Do you recall what the big
burned at the stake or drowned?
Burning or drowned.
Okay. This is what the person said. He said one person was pressed by stone, and the other 19 witches were all hung. None of them were burnt, which I don't remember either.
I remember all of them being.
I remember going there as a kid, and I seen the dunking booth that they would get them out on the chair and drop them in the pond.
There was two things. They were burned at the stake. Actually, wait a minute. The first test, I believe, is they would put them in the water, and if they drowned, they weren't a witch. If they survived, they get burned at the stake because they're a witch, right?
Yeah, right.
That was the whole thing. Like, yeah,
working a double heat on them, and you're going under either way.
Yeah, you want to put over the stiff guy or the super stiff guy. You'll only end up in the hospital from the one guy. You might end up dead from this other guy. Which do you want? Yeah. Oh, by the way, you're still going to work the second guy if you survive the first. Yeah. I mean, here's what I'm reading is exactly that it was either between drowning, because they would tie they would tie stones to their ankle and throw the stone in the water in the lake or whatever, right?
Yeah. They had a whole chair that they would swing out too, and push the lever down, and under they'd go, and they leave them under there for 2 minutes and bring them back up, and if they were still alive, then you're gone. Then you're going to the roaster.
Even Disney has some Mandela effect changes too. I mean, the most famous one that I recall is the whole mirror on the wall thing. Now it's saying that it was never mirror, and that it was a magic mirror on the wall.
That's what convinced my wife. That's what convinced my wife was the mirror one, because she's a huge Disney fan. She's seen that movie 100 times, and she goes, "It's not magic mirror." And then she started looking into it. It only takes one for people to say.
Everyone's got their one, man.
Yeah,
and for women and wives who are into E-channel and don't really get into this stuff like we do, that's a good one. And so is Sex in the City. So if you want to convince your old lady and she thinks you're crazy, just show her that. Just ask her. Say, what is the name of the show with Sarah Jessica Parker on HBO? And then when they give you the wrong answer or the original answer or the right one, you show them otherwise, and they say no way, and then you double down with your mirror on the wall, and you're over.
Yeah, and just to remind you, just to confirm this, that I was told today that she did not marry a 12-year-old. So just to let you know. I need to be reminded of that. Don't troll your wife on Facebook with the comments with silly pictures.
You don't piss off the booker. You know that, bro.
That's why I've got 432 wives. I just put one away and get another one out.
Nice. Yalla. And then, you know what I saw today, actually? You guys ever seen The Sorcerer and the Stone from Disney?
Yeah, there's another one. Yeah, go ahead with that, Pop. I saw this too.
I mean, it's called Sorcerer and the Stone. So where do you think King Arthur in the cartoon would pull Excalibur out of?
Yeah, he pulls it out of a stone. I remember it vividly.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Now they're saying he pulled it out of an anvil, not a stone.
What?
Yep.
Which makes no sense.
An anvil is sitting on a stone, and the sword is in an anvil.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I mean,
No,
the only anvil I know is Jim the Anvil Neidhart. He wasn't in the freaking movie.
No. So that's another one too. That's maybe a little lesser known, but you're going to see more and more of these creep up. And if you think in your lifetime that you've seen one or two that you're not sure of, give it a check online. And another one for me that's a brand label was Skechers shoes, Sketchers. Now the T is gone, and you cannot find it anywhere with the T.
See, I only remember without the T.
Really?
Yeah, that's all I remember. So I'll say this too, just to add it, because you're listening to audio. If you go to my YouTube channel, it's going to be video. You can make a comment below and tell me and tell all of us, a Mandela effect that we might not be covering, or if you think it's completely insane, you can put it in the comments. But this is stuff that I've checked it in. I checked in, and you said put the DVD in. I got the movie. Nothing with the Nolan trilogy has changed, thank God, because they're the perfect movies. So don't change those, CERN. Please don't.
One sucked, bro.
Well, the second one didn't.
Captain Pickard. You don't know about Captain Pickard?
Yeah. No Greeks were in any of those movies, thank God.
Oh, we know the future in space is safe. That's why. So, go ahead, buddy.
No, go ahead. What are you gonna say?
I'm just saying the only other thing that I can really attribute this to, and this is as far as it gets. I like John Teeter. I love the story. I can't believe it's not been made into a mega movie yet. And the CERN thing really sits with me too. But are we each our own individual sim living in our own matrix, and it's a software update. That's the third one that comes to pass.
You know what's funny? Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just finished their season about them being within a matrix in another universe. So there we go. There's another different multi-universe that they're throwing on Main Street, USA, to prepare us for whatever may or may not come down the road.
Do you want to take the next episode to maybe examine the simulation hypothesis? Because that's a segue for that, because that's what basically physicists are saying, that we could be living in that. These are people, once again, connected with CERN.
I'd like to touch on it. I think, I don't want to, and this is just me, and I absolutely, and we can take this anywhere we want to. Steve, you get in three-way dances. You can lead how you want to during your heat. And I'd like to hear what the audience has to say, what they pick out. I know there's other ones, Fruit Loops, Captain Crunch. There's a ton of them. What's that?
Kit Kat,
Kit Kat bars. Yeah. There's a bunch of them out there. Let us know what your favorites are, and we'll try and come back in the beginning in case somebody doesn't do something stupid on Twitter and we have to talk wrestling for 15 minutes. And I'll breeze up on that, because I'm pretty green on when it comes to that side of things. And I'd like to send me some research. And
it doesn't have to be this next episode, but I think it's something that you want to talk about. And we're going to be quoting people that everybody looks up to as some of the most world-renowned physicists. So it's not a bunch of nut jobs talking about this simulation hypothesis. And once again, what movie does that make you think of? Where it was super popular, and once again, Ben, you're big on the predictive programming.
Yeah,
it's almost like right in people's faces.
Yeah, it's right there. I mean, the whole Matrix thing. What pill you taking? I like software uploads. I mean, you're the tech guy, wizard as well, so you know what it is. Who's to say, man, that it's just not a software update and things are a little screwy and whatnot.
So if it's a software update, Ben, let me ask you this then. I'm still not to cut you off, but if it is a software update, what's the actual reality? Who's controlling it?
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is there's one supercomputer that controls everything, right? As well.
So are we all laying in beds with wires in our body like Neo
Very
and
well
all
could
these
be.
other guys?
Is this reality Ben Hamin's reality where I started my own podcast and I'm just such an ECW mark, as you can see over my shoulder here with this chair, that I got to be with Stevie Richards and Big Sal, and you and I crossed paths, and this is my own reality that I've created for myself, and I'm all in a dream. It was all a dream, you know, as far as that goes. And I'm doing this, and that you guys aren't real whatsoever, and I'm just, you know, making this in my head so I can continue being a battery for some giant supercomputer. Is that possible? I mean, we
anything's possible.
Well,
right.
they say too that I don't know if it's necessarily the matrix and we're energy for the, or batteries for the computer, but more like zeros and ones.
Yeah, are we
like we're just basically anything like Skype on our computer. It's just a bunch of zeros and ones that come together as an app and bring us together. So these once again, this is not something I just came up with. I've never done drugs, by the way, and I'm not on them now. But these are things that people are at conferences, and these physicists are talking about quantum computing and multiverses and also simulation hypothesis. These are theories and hypothesis, I should say, that are coming up from people that have gone to school all their lives and studied this stuff. So it's pretty insane, you know.
It is. And there's a guy in the 70s, late 70s, who came up with this originally, and everyone thought he was a nut job. But now you have all these people who are basically saying the same exact thing that he said in 1977 or 76 or 78 or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. And now they're world-renowned physicists. In my opinion, science is just fucking a work, dude. It's one giant work.
Nobody takes him seriously after what's the guy in the wheelchair?
Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking.
After Stephen Hawking got hurt doing dives, that was it. You know what I mean?
That's it. Grab a hold, brother. Put a headlock on. Make the crowd want it.
Headlock on Stephen Hawking.
Hey, but you know what? He flips when he sees his bank statement, just like Orton.
It's nice. He's overstrong on us all. But I think, we'll touch on this for sure. Stevie, send me some info on that, because I definitely need to do some more research to wrap my head around it. And I'd like to switch it up back to something like, I know, Stevie, you're big into JFK. Let's get back into it. See something along those lines, where we can, and there's so much material out there, and things that have changed, from even Mandela effect. For a while, people thought it was the driver that turned around and did the shooting,
and some people think it was Jackie. If you're looking at the video,
which is weird.
Yeah, very weird stuff.
A lot of changes within that we could cross over, and maybe we'll switch it up. But definitely check out Stevie's video. If you're listening on hackerhamin.podbean.com, send me at bin_Hamin, at Greek God Papadon, at BWO Stevie. Let us know what you thought. If you're on iTunes, leave us that big 5-star rating, or I'm going to $5 face slap you morons at the indie show. And thank you very much for listening, and hopefully we'll have Big Sal, full-blooded infidel, back on here with us next time. We missed him today, because I was almost pumped, because he told us that he was green on this subject and that it was getting him pissed off and hot. So I was hoping we would have some Big Sal reactions. So it'll be good to kind of revisit this, and we can tease him a little bit about it. And I'm sure he's going to listen to this and have plenty to say on it, man, because I always like Sal's take on stuff. It's always
very smart guy, really smart guy.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And Stevie's the one who smartened me up on this and put me onto this, because I didn't know about this. And he sent it one day. One day he tells me something about a Mandela effect. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? He goes, here's a link. Take a look.
Jacob Israel's video, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
Man, hit me.
Watch Jacob Israel. Subscribe to his channel, because that's what I showed Papadon, and nobody presents better than he does on YouTube with this kind of material. He really does a great job.
Except for the conspiracy horsemen, because we just rode down on all of the infidels. Y'all. And hey, did you guys check out real quick before we go home that new Secure Team 10 video I sent with the lady who taped the
orbs? The orbs
in the fields doing the crop circles, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I watched it.
That is some really convincing ass video, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was strong.
Like I said, it's a bunch of prepubescent alien teenagers just catching tags.
Just tagging.
Just tagging up here, just catching murals and throwing up throwies and whatever.
When I was studying Planet X pretty heavily, when I was doing a lot of Planet X studying, the one dude does that other video I sent you is a great mathematical breakdown of Planet X crop circles. It'll come up if you search that on YouTube, and it shows Nibiru the Destroyer and how it fits in with all of our solar system, and that the crop circles align perfectly, and he was decoding a lot of what that comes out to be with distance wise. So very interesting.
What's the guy's name? Tyler from Secure Team?
Tyler from Secure Team.
Why don't we try to get him on? That would be great.
I sent him a tweet, but he just had Greer on to talk all about his new
which was
movie.
Great.
Yeah, that was great too. And I'm going to get that book. What was it? Unacknowledged? I can't remember what it is.
And Unacknowledged.
Yeah, Unacknowledged. And because he said the movie's great, but the book has 10 times more information in it. So I'm finishing Yes and Business Improv, my buddy Bob Callahan's book, and then I'm moving right on to that. So, Allah, guys. This has been another Hamin's Hardcore Happy Hour. Big Stevie, Greek God, take it home. Plug what you got. I'm at Dynasty Wrestling this weekend. So many different federations. And going for those tag team championships, ProWrestlingTees.com/Bin Hamin. Podcasting all week. And I'll be doing WrestleZone.com. What is the pay-per-view this weekend? Backlash. I'll be working on that Sunday night. And on Friday, Impact Attack with my man Big Ray. So you can catch me all week long, infidels.
God Papadon.
Well, Friday I'll be at House of Hardcore out in St. James, Long Island. Saturday I'll be at the NYWC, New York Wrestling Connection, out in Deer Park. You can catch me on Facebook at Greek God Papadon, Twitter Greek God Papadon, Pro Wrestling Tees / Greek God Papadon. You can catch us here doing our Conspiracy Horsemen thing every week and enlightening the masses, because that's what we're here to do, enlighten all you foolish peasants to the knowledge that my Greek ancestors once laid out. You guys are botched up. And that's basically it, man. Oh, by the way, JFK, did you guys know, I'm pretty sure you guys did know, but that one of the hitmen who tried to take out JFK, one of the shooters, was Woody Harrelson's dad?
Yeah.
I said that last week.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I'm sorry, dude.
You're using Mandela effect as an excuse now. I did. I remember bringing that up. Yeah. I do. We'll have to play it back. So you can catch me at BW Stevie on Twitter, at Stevie Richards on Instagram, also StevieRichardsFitness.com, or to go directly to Patreon.com/Stevie Richards for all the support-based models. Working on a new high-frequency training program that's less days a week for June. Testing that out. Also, ProWrestlingTees.com/Stevie Richards. I'm thinking about putting up, I got a hashtag triggered and hashtag offended shirts that I might put up there. And also, some conspiracy ones are going to start going up. You've inspired me on that one.
I'm going to do.
Yeah, I'm working. Listen,
I'm doing hack instead of dive. That's going to be the next one.
Nice.
I'll put sell.
Hey, you got to put a $sign for the S for sell, because that's where the money is in. It's in the sell.
Well, you stole my JFK thing, so I'll steal that from you.
No worries.
It's mine. Take us out.
It's wrestling.
Yeah, thank you guys, and it's been a good one. Hopefully we can get Big Sal on next week. If his wife number one lets him out of the ogre cave, we'll have him back. The Conspiracy Horsemen riot again, infidels, and let us know, as like I said, what you thought of this week's show, because we're coming for you morons, and there is no survival as we move into World War III. YOLO.